It's Thursday. It's a fight week. It's actually a pay-per-view fight week. So actually we've got something to be excited about. Last couple of times it's been like these are not very good fight nights or whatever. This is the exception. UFC 290. It's been a bit cursed because of course we lost Bo Nickal versus Tresean Gore to Gore getting injured. And now we have Bo Nickal in what ironically might be a more difficult fight against Valentine Woodburn. But it's still, it's a short notice one. It's hard to get hyped for that one. And then the Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady fight fell apart. And of course, we have a terrible fight there. We have a terrible replacement there because we have Jack Della Maddalena versus Josiah Harrell. I like Josiah Harrell. He's a Matt Brown related fighter, from his sort of associated gyms tree there in Ohio. But he is a lightweight. He doesn't really ask any questions of Jack Della Maddalena. Spoiler, picking Jack Della Maddalena. Not a great fight. And we also lost a fight I was looking forward to way back. We lost the Manel Kape versus Davidson Figueiredo fight. And neither of those guys are on the card as a result. We also lost Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Simon. I wasn't super looking forward to that fight. Rodriguez and Simon are kind of in the same boat of guys who they're winning, but I don't really find myself invested in them at all. So is that coming to this fight, this card, I should say. The only thing I really don't like is that Bo Nickal's on the main card. I've kind of said this is that I don't hate Bo Nickal, and I think he's got the right mentality, the right general psychological makeup, and of course, amazing wrestling in a division sorely lacking wrestling, that he is probably going to challenge for a title and be a champion in the future. I do truly believe that. I believe there's going to be a setback at some point where he loses a fight, but I do believe he's going to be a champion. That being said, do I want to pay to see him fight Valentine Woodburn? No. And I'm not really sure who would want to see it, because I think if you're trying to lure in new fans with this, if you're trying to lure in hardcores with this, and they're not buying this card for Volkanovski versus Yar, I don't think that does anything for them. If you're trying to lure in casuals for this, and they're not buying it for a double title fight, I don't know. I guess they can be fooled by Bo Nickal. And if you're trying to lure in new fans, i.e. wrestling fans who haven't translated to MMA yet, I don't think this really does as good of a job as perhaps putting him as the hook on the undercard, feature prelim type thing. Get them in with the ESPN Plus subscription, let them see the fight, let them see some other fights, let them fall in love and go in. Because I'm going to go way back in time here to The Ultimate Fighter. Because The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 was the explosion of the UFC, when it became financially viable, and it got the Spike TV deal, and it got the viewership. If you look back at time at the pay-per-view buy rates around that time, they did not go up some magical number. They were a little bit higher, don't get me wrong. They went up. But the driving force behind creating new interest was putting the Ultimate Fighter guys on Spike TV cards with a couple of your better up-and-coming or veteran established guys. Evan Tanner, David Loazo is a classic fight of this. And getting interest that way. And I do think that using Bo Nickal in that capacity would actually be better than putting him on the pay-per-view. But hey, he's on the pay-per-view. We deal with it. And the other kind of weird thing coming into this fight is honestly just the Volkanovski GOAT conversation. Allow me to state for the record, Volkanovski is my pick for featherweight GOAT. That being said, I don't believe that there is no other answer. GOAT is entirely subjective conversation. There are very few weight classes that have one true answer. The only ones I can think of off the top of my head would be Jones at 205, unless you're disqualifying him for possible PED use, I guess. But I think I have a hard time with that because I do believe that there is probably a less than clean point in career of all of the candidates. And George St. Pierre at 170. just because he was never beaten for the crown, and Usman had a good run, but Usman, no, it came a little too late in his career. And then Demetrius Johnson at flyweight, and then Nunez at 145, 135 for the women, Valentina Shevchenko at 125 for the women. Those are like undisputed GOATs. I really can't see an argument any other way. You'll note I didn't include Volkanovski, but like the weird thing is like people are like, there are people putting up like the Volkanovski is GOAT, like hot takes. It's not a really hot take to be honest, but like hot take, Volkanovski is the GOAT. And people are like getting really angry about it, like really, really attacking about it. Like we're talking insults flying. We're talking all kinds of like, this is ridiculous. You're a casual talker. It's just like I don't get it. Volkanovski is a guy who is 4-0 against the other GOAT candidates. He's beaten Max. He's beaten Aldo. Granted, I will say, in the terms of like peakness of Aldo, I don't believe he beat him at peak. I do believe that like late 30s Aldo or early 30s Aldo, when Volkanovski beat him, was probably, I don't know, like 90, 95, low 90s of peakness. But like that's still a amazing win. And he's also beaten a lot of the same like kind of guys, honestly, that Aldo beat during his run. Like, you know, one of Aldo's biggest wins is Chad Mendes. Volk's got that win. One of Aldo's biggest wins is Korean Zombie. Volk's got that win. Mind you, a washed version of the Zombie. But still, I don't know. It just seems weird that anyone would be heatedly anti-Volkanovski GOAT conversation. So, on that note, let's get into the fight. Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, 145-pound title. I'm picking Volk. That shouldn't really be a surprise. I will freely say this. I am usually late to get onto the hype bandwagon of fighters. I am late to get off the hype bandwagon of fighters. As a general rule, there are exceptions to this. So when I every GOAT will fall, or they'll retire before they fall. But every GOAT will have their day where they fade off into the sunset, either by choice or by result. And generally speaking, I will be the last one to see that. Like I even say this with like Tyron Woodley, who was not the GOAT, but like was a fighter that I knew because of his fighting style. Once he started to slow down, there was going to be a drastic moment where he fell off. Yet I still picked him in the fight against Usman. I never picked him after that because I knew that day had come. That his style was based upon speed that was no longer there. With Volkanovski, I think it's it's going to be a much shorter, not shorter, gradual downfall that I think we'll see coming. Because his game, yes, it is built on physicality. Like no champion's game is built divorced of physical gift. But it's built with like a tremendous amount of technical layering to it. That little bit of early loss of speed or explosiveness is going to be disguised much, much better than, a Woodley. I really do need to find another example other than Woodley. I've used him a number of times, but like it is the most drastic example I can think of. And sure, Yair Rodriguez is a super exciting fighter. He's dynamic. He's a finisher. He's creative as all heck. He does have good fundamentals. Like when he came into the UFC originally, there was a significant lack of structure to his game, and it's gotten much better. And that's why he's winning fights that he would not have won before. But I watched that fight with Max Holloway, and I'm like, I still think that you can crowd Rodriguez. You're gonna have to eat some shit. You're gonna have to eat some stuff to get there. It's not going to be an easy ride. It's not going to be the Frankie Edgar like instant takedown ride. But you can still be pressured. He can still be driven around the cage, cut off, and slowly have his weapons taken away. And that is the Volkanovski game. That's what Volkanovski does. Has he done it to someone the quality of Yair Rodriguez, no. Yair Rodriguez is truly like I don't want to say one of a kind because there's someone else out there like him, but like a rare physical specimen of like finishing ability and kicking with like good reach and like, decent boxing tools. And I have no doubt that he can hurt Volkanovski at various points. But the longer this fight goes, I think the more and more Volkanovski starts doing kind of essentially what he did to Max Holloway, which is just, honestly, over the course of the 15 rounds that he fought with Holloway, it got worse and worse and worse. And that kind of is the same thing here. I think he's got the game planning ability, the tactical insight, the strategic planning, plus the physicality, plus the technical aspects to make that happen, to just kind of break Yair down. And beating Josh Emmett doesn't really convince me otherwise, because Josh Emmett, we kind of saw against Ilia Topuria, Josh Emmett is not a nuanced fighter. He's not a breakdown fighter. He's kind of a one-size-fits-all game plan with like surprising power. Volkanovski doesn't need to surprise you with anything. He's just going to kind of take you apart. I've got him by decision here because Yair is super tough and has like great cardio. And Volkanovski's not the biggest finisher in the world. Like, if we're being honest, like during his title run, he's actually only finished one guy. And that's the Ghost of the Korean Zombie. He couldn't finish Brian Ortega despite hitting him really hard. He still hasn't finished Max Holloway to date. He does have finishes over Jeremy Kennedy and Chad Mendes back in the day, so he's got 3 UFC finishes. Pardon me, 4. I forgot his debut against Yusuke Kasiyua. For some reason, I was thinking the Shane Young one was his debut. But yeah, he's generally a decision fighter. And Rodriguez is super tough, super durable, super cardio. Decision for Volkanovski. Volk is the favorite, minus 370 to minus 420. Rodriguez is the plus 285 to plus 310 underdog. That seems about right. You could bet on Yair Rodriguez at that odds. Like that's wide enough that you can take if you think that this is the moment, you can take a gamble on that. And I don't really know why you'd bet on Volk, but I don't know. It just because the winnings wouldn't really be the value wouldn't be there. And there are other fights on this card that I think there is better value on. Brandon Moreno versus Alexandre Pantoja, number 3. Man, every time I watch Alexandre Pantoja versus Moreno 2, I'm just like, man, how do you even come back from this? But then, like, I watch Moreno's more recent fights, the Figueiredo quadrilogy, and really just any of his fights. It's like, that is a very different fighter. He has gotten so much better. His boxing, particularly, is way better. His use of the jab, his ability to bring in combinations, his ability to withstand pressure, and just defensively. Like, the thing with like the Pantoja second fight is Pantoja was able to hit him basically at will. Because Moreno was such a blank slate defensively at the time. And he's much better about that now. The guard is more active. The ability to roll punches exists. The ability to counter has become so much better. His counter timing and his ability to find counter windows, much better. So much better. And he just seems to have filled out into more of a man, because a lot of the Pantoja fight with Moreno, both times, did feel like throwing a boy around. Throwing kind of like a kid around, someone who hadn't reached their physical prime yet. And now he's there. It's kind of weird because there's only 4 years between them, honestly. But 5 years, 24-year-old Moreno versus 29-year-old Moreno. An amazing amount of changes have occurred in there. And I also do feel like Pantoja is sliding just a little bit. I don't think he's the same physical specimen he was. He's 33 years old. He's not done by any means. I'm not suggesting he's washed up. I'm not suggesting he's done, but he's a little faded. If I were to compare this to the Volkanovski Aldo fight, which I was talking about before, this is kind of the point of the career where Pantoja is becoming his version of that Aldo, where everything still works. The low kicks still work. The power still works. The back take game still works. The incredible scrambling still works. But it's all a little below where it was. It's that pinch of salt down lower. As a result, I'm going on Moreno. I think he's just improved so much. I think he's in an incredibly different headspace at this point. And I think that realistically, having gone through that Figueiredo trilogy, he is become not Mighty Mouse good, but like something incredibly good. And I've got him by decision because Pantoja is Pantoja is a tough SOB. It's kind of the same thing with Rodriguez from before. You don't really finish this guy. Davidson Figueiredo could not do it. Askar Askarov could not a huge finisher, mind you. Could not do it. He has not been... I don't know if he was finished by William Viana back at Watch Out Combat Show in 2008. That might be the one. But this guy does not get finished. And Moreno is dangerous, is lethal, can finish people, but like I don't think he's a once-in-a-lifetime finisher. So I'm going with decision. I am pleased to see that Moreno is the favorite, minus 188 to minus 210. Pantoja's plus 158 to plus 175. That's a live dog. This is a live dog on Pantoja. You got plus odds on Pantoja, and he's fighting a guy he's beaten twice. I don't know. I'm tempted. But again, disclaimer on betting. Do not bet what you cannot lose. This is MMA. Things get weird. That's why I wouldn't bet on Bo Nickal. We're going to talk about his odds later. Robert Whittaker, Dricus du Plessis. I've kind of broken down this fight a couple of times because every time Dricus comes up, it's like he's been on this march towards a title shot, basically because of the in my opinion, poor taste trash talk with Izzy Adesanya. If you enjoy it, cool, whatever. It's not like some of the other forms of trash talk, like Colby Covington and like Sean Strickland don't even really have like the allure that they're talking facts. Like at least with DDP, it's like, yeah, Izzy did leave Africa. I'm still here. I'm training here. It ignores the like completely different circumstances of their lives, but you know, it's something. And it's a fresh face. So like part of me wants him to get that title shot because I think Izzy will destroy him. But the other part of me is a Robert Whittaker fan and also just a big believer in Robert Whittaker. I think Whittaker represents somebody who does not self-destruct or does not have significant durability issues. And that's been the people that DDP has been feasting off of. Guys who are fading out. Like Derek Brunson has cardio issues and durability issues, and he finished him. Darren Till has an incredibly limited game, and he finished him. Brad Tavares is an incredibly predictable guy who kind of is like the super dollar store version of what Robert Whittaker does. And even that gave him some problems. And like Trevin Giles, all kinds of problems there. Let's not even get started on Marcus Perez, who he debuted against. Marcus Perez is a mess. Marcus Perez is a fighter that is like good at things that he refuses to do. It's kind of hilarious. And with Robert Whittaker, like this is a guy who is incredibly well-rounded. Like for the middleweight division, which is a division of largely specialists, he is a good boxer, a good kickboxer, a good wrestler. He is a good grappler. He's not an amazing finisher. I guess that's the one thing. And of course, DDP has been making a big deal about the fact that, hey guys, I got my nose fixed. I'm no longer functioning on 8% oxygen. And that, you know what? That may do wonderful things because, I mean, but I don't even know if that does wonderful things because does that do anything other than like maybe DDP doesn't look gassed? Because it's not like DDP gasses out before. It's not like cardio wasn't something he was already weaponizing. It's not like pace wasn't something he was already weaponizing. It's not like aggression wasn't something he was already weaponizing. Like, it's kind of weird. It's just, he would look exhausted. He's incredibly sloppy at everything he does. Like, his striking is sloppy. His wrestling is so sloppy. Oh my God. You remember when Dominic Cruz and Daniel Cormier were like ripping into women's MMA wrestling? Almost everything they said applies to Drix Duplessis. This guy will pull people down on top of himself. It's a mess. It is honestly a mess. And I just see Whitaker taking him apart. Like, not completely one-sided, because DDP has moments like that pathological aggression, that toughness, that incredible physicality. It will get him moments where he does something to make this somewhat competitive. But I just think Whitaker will repetitively just be taking him apart. And yeah, I've got TKO because, frankly, I see Duplessis' chin cracking at this point. But we'll see. Whitaker is a minus 375 to minus 435 favorite. So, like, there's no hot take here. I mean, the hot take maybe is that I'm picking finish. DDP is plus 285 to plus 310. The biggest underdog of the serious fighters on the main card. The biggest underdog will be Valentin Woodburn. We'll talk about that in a second. Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner. I kind of got off the Dan Hooker hype train a while ago when it wasn't the Islam Makhachev loss, but it was his reaction to the Islam Makhachev loss, which was like, all right, guys, I'm going to cut back down to 145 and get nuked by Arnold Allen. And then sure, he came back up and he beat Claudio Puelles, but Claudio Puelles is not representative of like any other fighter. We'll just put it that way. Puelles is like a weird grab bag of like silly ideas. And Turner is not. Turner is actually a well-structured 6'3" lightweight, massive, gigantic human being who hits really hard, has actually some pretty reasonable takedown defense, although he has been gotten down by Matt Frevola, by Mateusz Gamrot, and so on. It can be done, but Hooker's not like... I mean, Hooker can be a persistent wrestling threat. He did it against Nasrat Haqparast, for example. But he's not a particularly great one. So I generally see this turning into a kickboxing match for the most part. And I just think Hooker is fading. I think his durability is fading. I think his speed is fading. I think his ability to... even like his foot speed, like his ability to keep range. And he is dealing with someone who is the same reach as him. Not that, and the concern for both of these guys is a little bit that like they're both huge, tall dudes who generally don't have to worry about height. Like their reach is generally insulation, but it's not like they don't have wins against similarly heighted people. Turner looked perfectly fine against Jamie Malarkey, for example, and Uroš Medic, guys who have tall, large frames. Rangy frames. So I don't know. It's a good test for Turner, but I am kind of on his bandwagon. I do think that there's a lot of physicality to him. And I think that, like, honestly, he's got the right coaching to develop it. Every time out, he has looked better and better. The things that I was concerned about previously have faded a little bit into the distance, and he's done the job. So I'm taking Jalen Turner to TKO Dan Hooker. He is the minus 250 to minus 280 favorite, and Hooker is the plus 190 to plus 230 underdog. So haven't picked a dog yet, and I won't be picking a dog in this next fight because Bo Nickal's fighting Valentin Woodburn on like a couple days' notice. Woodburn is a 5'8" middleweight. He is super thick boy though. Like we're talking Dolce Lugiambula 2.0 here. It's not much of a worse fight. To be honest, it's actually kind of a better fight than Gore. Because Gore, to me, is the same sort of fighter, but taller, but who has even less of a technical grasp of how to apply his power to a fight. Like, Gore has decent power, and at least he finished the low-level regional opposition he did. Gore never did. Like, that was the thing. A lot of people were like, man, Gore's going to be a killer. I'm just like, this guy went to decisions, nip-tuck on the regional scene. I don't have that ability. I don't have that ability to see him. And And Bo Nickal, talked about him earlier. Dude is perhaps the best wrestler that MMA has ever seen, at least on a serious level. There's been a couple of Olympians who have done a fight and then been I don't really like this, and they duck out. He is perhaps the most serious high level wrestler who wants to do this and has the mentality and the drive to make this happen, to make this into a long-term career. His striking still is very, very raw, but he seems to have a comfort with it that inspires faith. He's at the absolute right place to be at in terms of training. I am by submission over Woodburn. This does feel like a big step down, even with the Gore fight. This felt like a really big step down from Jamie Pickett, which is kind of weird. Don't get me wrong, Jamie Pickett was a stylistic gimme, but I don't know. It was at least someone veteran savvy. Whereas they book him here against Gore, who has 6 fights, and then it's all right, here's Woodburn, who has 7 fights. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it does just feel kind of weirdly stagnant, considering what he did against Pickett. Just a little more of a step up would have felt appropriate. And I'm not even saying about the late notice replacement here with Woodburn. I'm saying Gore felt like a step back. So that's kind of weird matchmaking. These are the widest odds I've seen in a fight in a long time in the UFC, minus quad 2 to minus 2,800 on Bo Nickal to plus 1,100 plus 1,300 on Woodburn. Don't bet on this fight. Don't. Woodburn's not going to win. Okay, you know what? Put $5 on Woodburn if you need to, but don't bet on Bo Nickal. Don't bet on anyone at minus 2,000 odds. Come on. Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price. This is the sad fight of the... I think this is the pay-per-view opener. Is it not? No, this is the feature prelim. So Bo Nickal opens the paper. Okay. Feature prelim. It's a sad fight because it's a fight that I would have picked Robbie Lawler to win in a heartbeat. Not even prime Robbie Lawler. I mean just before fighting Brian Barberena, Robbie Lawler. A guy who's probably going to stand and bang with him, isn't going to really wrestle him, isn't particularly good at wrestling him, and isn't particularly good at putting the kind of I hate being here Lawler on display. But that Barberena fight was just sad. He looked fine, and then things just turned off. And at 41 years old, it could be just time for Robbie Lawler to head out onto pasture and say goodbye to what has been an insane career. Robbie Lawler is the MMA fighter that should have a Lifetime movie made of them. It's that kind of story. But I guess I got to pick Nico Price here, even though I don't think Nico Price's weird kind of knockout power really works here. I don't think Nico Price is particularly better than Robbie Lawler at anything. It's just a case of being 8 years younger than a 41-year-old guy. And Lawler turning off and just gassing out. It's also a little bit of a sadness hedge because if Lawler wins this fight and I don't pick him, I'm still going to be ecstatic. This is one of my favorite all-time fighters. Lawler is up on the very short list of, I don't know if I have a favorite fighter, but he is on that short list of guys in contention. But I am picking Price to TKO. Price is a minus 250 to 295 favorite. Lawler plus 200 to plus 225. That's maybe a little bit long. I'll probably put a bet down on Lawler. That's the first betting line that I feel like I want to bet on. It's the first one. Probably I'll put a little bit on Pantoja as well, but Lawler's a pick. Jack Della Maddalena, Josiah Harrell. I said it, Harrell's not a bad fighter or anything, but he's 7-0 against regional level competition. He's coming up from lightweight. He's 5'7". Jack Della Maddalena should take him apart. Like that's the sad Maddalena. I keep adding an N to his name, Maddalena. Feel free to let me have it in the comments below. It'll drive that spike into my head. He just doesn't ask anything. Like he's a fine power striker with some solid takedown game, considering I don't think he has a wrestling background. Talking about Harrell. I think he's just like a pure BJJ background. Like he doesn't have bad takedowns for that background. And I like his aggressive approach to ground and pound, but he's smaller. He's raw striker. JDM will take him apart with body shots and pressure and do his thing. And it's a shame because I was actually really looking forward to JDM versus Sean Brady. JDM is a surprisingly only minus 900 favorite to minus 1100. Harrell plus 550 to plus 650. It's just kind of weird that he's like so much smaller of a favorite than Bo Nickal. That being said, it's not a betting fight. It's too wide. I mean, I guess you could put a little on Harrell, but I don't even know what his win looks like here. So after those two, disappointing, depressing fights, we get to Jasmine Howergui, Denise Gomez, which I like a lot more. I didn't pay Gomez the respect that she was owed when she fought Bruna Bruzel. I was like, Bruna Bruzel is going to win this fight. I thought she was going to lose. And then she just goes out there and like immediately starts hurting Bruzel. Like she has some dynamite in her hands. She has a strong clinch game, even if it is technically limited. What I mean by that is that it does seem like she's hard to manhandle in the clinch, even though she's not necessarily doing things correctly. It's a pure physical edge that she has. And if we turn back to the Jasmine Howergui fight against Estela Nunez, in the first round, particularly that one, Howergui starts kind of slow. Like she's kind of a cold starter. And Nunez was able to hurt her in a very similar way to how Gomez hurt Bruna Bruzel. Very, very similar. So I'm nervous, but I think the longer the fight goes, if Howergui can get past that cold stage, she is the better striker, the better boxer particularly. She has some good she has some good counter striking things, and I think Gomez is still pretty counterable. I think there's a lot of things that she does that just leaves an opening that's going to be long enough for Howergui to pop her, work her around, and probably pick up eventually decision here. But like an attrition like late end TKO is not out of the question. So I am picking Jasmine Howergui. I'm very bullish on her if she can sort out kind of her slow starts. But Gomez has got me worried. Got me a little worried, and I'm tempted to bet on her at plus 290 to plus 320. That's big. Howergui's a little bit of an over favorite here, 375 to 360. 460, pardon me. It's a little bit wide. Given that, like, don't get me wrong, by the end of the Nunez fight, Howergui had, started to dominate her, and this is a similar stylistic matchup. But there was a lot of trouble early. I'm just worried about that. I'm picking Menefield Crute 2 to look a lot like Menefield Crute 1. Like, the problem for Jimmy Crute is I don't know what he can change. He got his butt kicked and got a draw because Menefield is a bit of an idiot and also a gas machine. And there's a lot there for Menefield to fix, such as don't foul. Focus on the cardio a little bit more. Don't go crazy trying to kill the unkillable brute. That I pretty much just have to pick Menefield. Like, I don't know what a Crute win looks like aside from like a DQ. Like, don't get me wrong, he's got some opportunistic submissions. He's incredibly tough. I like Jimmy Crute a lot more, actually. Like, I think Menefield is number one. It got to the UFC too old. He's 35 years old. I think he got here when he was like 31, 32. Hang on. I should have made note of when he got here. Minifield UFC debut 18 if we can include Dana White Contender Series. I guess we'll go with that. So that's like 5 years. So yeah, 31. He got here a little bit too late. Like it was like one of those ones where like when he popped up, I'm like, this young, interesting prospect with obvious physical upside with some time, and then he's 30. This is 205, and he'll hang around for a while, obviously. Here we are 5 years later still talking about him. But that being said, he, hasn't gotten much better. I still got to pick him. I'll love it if Crute wins because that'd be cool, but Menifield by TKO. Crute is surprisingly enough the favorite, -120 to -130. This is my big bet for the time because Menifield is -106 to +110. Like, he's not a massive underdog or anything, but I don't even think he should be an underdog. So, there you go. Tetsuya Taira versus Edgar. Is it Chairez? I don't know. I saw a couple different pronunciations while I was studying for this. This is a catchweight 130 fight because late notice. Taira was supposed to have a really cool fight with Clayton Rodriguez, and I was looking forward to it, and Rodriguez pulled out 2 weeks ago? I think it was 2 weeks ago. And so we have this fight instead. There is no reason to not pick Taira. Chairez has even been submitted by former Taira opponent, Jesus Aguilar, I do believe. And a lot of his major limitations came in with the Clay Carpenter fight. Not a stud, particularly great athlete. He's nice filler for the division right now. Did he lose to Aguilar? Am I wrong on that? Yeah, he did. Yeah, he got guillotined by Aguilar in the 5th round of their fight at UWC. He's been submitted a couple of times. Taira is a very, very good submission artist. Good athlete. Good takedown artist. Again, I've said this. I was hesitant to get on the Taira train because I was like, Japanese fighters tend to have this kind of weird non-flow to their skill set that like always is going to worry me. And it's still going to worry me with the next one. It's not like Taira set me right on this. But yeah, no, it's a step down again. The only concern I guess would be is that Taira doesn't seem to have a lot of late notice replacement fights on his record. He didn't have any by the looks of it. So is he one of those guys who needs to study, and not having that crutch of like a full camp for someone maybe causes problems? But I doubt that it'd even matter. Taira is a -1,000, -1,100 favorite. Chairez is +600, +675. Don't tell me Taira is a bigger favorite than he is. He is a bigger favorite than Jack Della Maddalena. That betting line is just getting weird. Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. I'm actually kind of compelled by this fight because Petrino's got like some interesting physical abilities. He's 25 years old. He's still learning. He's a mess. He is such a mess. His fight with Anton Turkalj was a mess and a half. It was like just the wrong decisions constantly that he still got away. It reminded me of Valentina Shevchenko versus Tyler Santos, which was a fight where it was like where like I wanted Shevchenko to lose because it's like it's not that I'm a big Santos fan or anything like that. It was just like I hate watching someone do like the one thing that they're not winning the fight at. And with Petrino, is like he was destroying Turkalj at range. It just kept clinching with them. Fortunately for him, that's exactly what you want to do against Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio is like one of those combat karate guys. He likes range. He likes to keep it at kicking range. He likes to utilize his generally impressive frame because he's a 6'3", but like Petrino's 6'2" and has a longer reach than him to, keep the kicks going and kind of do what he did to William Knight, which was be remarkably boring, but like never really get, forced to reset or pressured into anything. And Petrino will march forward. We know this. He will tank forward. He will take damage. He will throw in the pocket. He will clinch. He will work takedowns. He will do sort of the similar things to what Felipe Lins and Mike Rodriguez did to Pratchino. He's not as good at it as them. He's not as technically savvy as them, but he is probably actually a much better athlete than both of them because Lins is not an amazing athlete, and like Mike Rodriguez is an actively kind of bad athlete, aside from being just like strong. Mike Rodriguez is like a slightly souped up version of an Ed Herman car. Ed Herman is the Ford F-150. You take it in the shop, you get like a little bit of a performance kit on it. That's Mike Rodriguez. And that was good enough. So yeah, Petrino by decision because I don't know. I don't trust him. I'm not going to trust him to finish until I see him finish someone good because like his decisions, like he would have Turkalj hurt and to just like let him off the hook. So maybe it's a finish, but decision for Petrino. He's a minus 275 to minus 300 favorite. Pratchino is plus 220 to plus 240. That's a little bit wide. It's going to be an ugly fight, but like at the same time, maybe it'll be fun. I don't know. It'll be one that I'm probably screaming at the screen. Why are you so dumb? Kind of similar to the famous Carmelo Marrero Ryan Bader fight that I was watching with my friend Sean. I'm going, why is Bader not finishing? And why is Marrero so bad on his back? It's going to be that kind of moment again. Cameron Simon versus late notice replacement Terrence Mitchell. Mitchell's coming up from Flyweight. He was actually on the Season of the Ultimate Fighter that Pantoja and Moreno had their first encounter on. He lost in 30 seconds to Kai Kara France for the record on that show. He's a fine athlete. He's tall. He's used to having range. He's got sneaky submissions. His range gives him certain striking advantages over people on the Alaska regional scene, but like the Alaska regional scene has not historically produced great fighters. Like you're basically looking at Jared Cannonier, and that's it. I'm picking Cameron Simon, even though like I'm really not on that hype train. I'm really not on that hype train. I like his kicking. I like his counter punching. I do not like his wrestling instincts. I do not like his grappling instincts. And I do think that a lot of his game is like, I'm just going to be Dricus du Plessis, but Dricus du Plessis is like a really top shelf athlete. And Cameron Simon is not. I'm still going to pick him to TKO him. Mitchell's got some fragility issues. He's coming in on short notice. He's coming up a weight class. He's used to just being able to physically dominate people. It's probably not going to happen. Simon is a minus 500 to minus 550. Mitchell is a plus 350 to plus 400. I'm going to put some money on the underdog. Jesus Aguilar versus Shannon Ross. I'm never picking Shannon Ross. It's nothing against Shannon Ross. It's not like I know some deep, dark secret of Shannon Ross being a terrible human being or whatever. It's just that he's a 34-year-old, not particularly athletic, not particularly skilled fighter at anything. I still don't understand how he lost his Dana White Contender Series fight. That was very obvious at that time. And then got a contract with the UFC anyways. I don't get it. He's not good. He's just not good. I'm not a huge fan of Aguilar either, but Aguilar at least does have like a powerful takedown game. Not particularly a great wrestler, but like a powerful takedown game. He likes to attack the neck with guillotines and rear naked chokes. He likes to be positionally sound. He did get absolutely dominated by Tetsuya Taira last time out, but at the same time, this is a guy who at least has a defined skill set, a little bit of physicality, not great physicality, but a little bit of physicality, and can get this done. And like I said, I'm just not picking Shannon Ross against anyone. It's fine if he's just like fodder for the division or whatever, but I don't know why you're having him fight Aguilar, who is also kind of fodder for the division, but like a more palpable, palatable, potable version of the same thing. Aguilar by submission. He's a minus 140 to minus 162 favorite. Ross is plus 115 to plus 126. I'm tempted to bet on the fight. I may bet on the fight. I'm actually quite up this year right now on the betting thing. Like I have my betting account has swollen to a nice healthy balance. But I don't know. I do want to. And opening up the card, we have Canelo Kirk versus Esteban Ribovic. 155-pound fight, so Kirk is coming up in weight class here. On first look, I was like, yeah, I really don't believe in Canelo Kirk, and like Ribovic is a pretty good athlete, and like Kirk had problems with Makwan Amirkhani and had to go to a decision with Makwan Amirkhani, and that's bad because Makwan Amirkhani gasses out horribly. So it suggests that like a finishing level thing is not going to happen. And then I rewatched Ribovic versus Loic Radzhabov, and I'm like, oh my god, Ribovic has the worst wrestling instincts I have seen in a long time. This is a guy who will like roll like will be like getting taken down and be like, all right, I'm gonna go for a Kimura. That's gonna help me. No. But here's the thing. Here's the tiebreaker. Well, one tiebreaker is Byron is bullying me into picking Ribovic because Esteban has a cool name and a cool nickname, whereas Canelo Kirk has Jamaican as his the Jamaican as his nickname. Is it? I forget what it is. I think it's Jawaian. Jawaian is the nickname. I should have written this down. Yeah, the Jawaian. And he's not a fan of that nickname, and he was like really laying it on thick. But like the real tiebreaker here is that Canelo Kirk is a 29-year-old veteran fighter who has lost multiple times. His failings as a fighter, I think, are unfixable. They are a combination of a lack of physical ability and a lack of capacity, be it mental, be it whatever it is, to like learn and improve from fundamental failings. Ribovic lost for the first time. He was undefeated before that Radzhabov fight. He is actually a really good athlete. I don't think he has physical limitations in the way that Kirk does. He's also bigger. Again, he's the 155er. Kirk is coming up. They may only be 2 years apart in age, 27 and 29, but Ribovic feels like a much younger fighter who just lost for the first time, might learn from it, get away from the freaking Kimura, and just emphasize your power striking and some basic takedown fundamentals, and that should be fine because, like it or not, Kirk is a guy who kind of got steamrolled by Damon Jackson. So I'm going with Ribovic by TKO. He is a minus 140 to minus 150 favorite. Kirk is a plus 114 to plus 125 underdog. I am going with the favorite. I am betting on the favorite because, honestly, I do feel fairly comfortable with Ribovic winning this fight. So, I get why the odds are close. Like, Kirk has a UFC win, albeit over Makwan Amirkhani, and Ribovic does not. Ribovic's wins are doesn't even have like a hang your hat on win on the regional scene. Like, it's 1-2 fighter, 5-2 fighter, 0-0, 5-6, 2-0-1. 2-2, 4-5, 21-6-1. Are you any good, Mr. Jose the Mercenary Zaraz? Okay, Zaraz might be okay. He beat Jordan Espinoza. That's not nothing. Actually he's got a higher profile win than Ribovic does, actually. I don't know, but like, okay, no, he didn't beat her. That got canceled. He was going to fight her, Humberto Banderas. And then, 17-6, Javier Baserta, who's a can crusher, 6-5. And then Thomas Paul, who's 5-11. Like, I don't know. When your best wins are Thomas Paul and Jose Zaraz, I don't know. I don't really know Zaraz. I know Paul. I know Paul's not that good. And then losing to Radzhabov. So, actually, this is a rebooking. I completely forgot that the fight between Radzhabov and Ribovic was supposed to be Ribovic versus Kirk. There you go. Kirk's also been out for a long time, more than a year with injury. He has been out since March of last year. So that'd be 16 months, 15, 16 months. So there's also that concern that like he's coming off of like major injuries and that could be a problem. So yeah, Ribovic, that finishes it off. It's a good card, even though there's some lowlights here. Like having Lawler, Price, and the late notice JDM fight kind of back to back is going to be a little bit of a bummer. Because like I'm going to be watching JDM absolutely destroy somebody and then being like, yeah, but then and next up, I had the most depressing fight of the card. And Bo Nickal being a main card guy is a little bit weak, but hey, you get two very compelling title fights. You get some very compelling stuff elsewhere on the card. Whitaker versus Duplessis has big stakes to it. Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner is a very, very good fight. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to Jasmine Hourgui versus Denise Gomes. I'm looking forward to Jimmy Crute versus Lonzo Menefield for what it is. I'm looking forward to Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio for what it is. It's fine. And even some of the fights that like I'm not hyped on from like a breakdown standpoint are probably going to be like Kamala Kirk versus Esteban Ribovic is probably going to be fun. Cameron Simon versus Terrence Mitchell might be fun. They're not super interesting technical breakdowns, but they're fun fights. And I think this deliver. The only weird thing I'm going to finish off here with this. So many Australian fighters are on this card when they have the Sydney card coming up in like 3 months. And it's kind of weird because that's like supposedly going to be Izzy's like, main event. Probably going to be an Izzy Adesanya card. That's, the worst kept secret in the world right now. In the MMA world. But like at the same time, you've got a number one contenders fight. Essentially, like a title eliminator fight here. And then it's like 3 months later, go. I don't like it. I don't like it. To be honest, like you could have even saved this fight for the Sydney card because let's be honest, you can do Whitaker in Australia and it's gonna do good things. And DDP in Australia probably gets a reaction. I don't know. And then you have Volkanovski on this card too, so it's like put those two fights over there. Get JDM on that card as well. Also, that's also why I'm like really annoyed by JDM having Josiah Harrell on this card because just put him on the Sydney card, guys. Pay him his travel expenses, like make it worth his time because he's traveled out here and he wants a fight. Okay, pay him his money and then put him on the Sydney card. Boom, done, victory. So there's just that's kind of the only weird thing here is that there's like a ton of Australian talent here. You've got an Australian pay-per-view coming up. You're like crimping that one honestly because you're making it hard to put like a good compelling fight for Izzy Adesanya on that card. You've got Volk here, so you don't have Volk as an option there. I don't know. It's just really weird like selection, I guess. Okay. That is all. Please check the links down below. You can find other places to listen to this if you would like to examine them. And you can also see my like gaming stuff, the Discord with the MMA Simulator, which I think you will enjoy. Because honestly, if you've gotten through 50 minutes of me talking about fights, you'll be down for that. It's not for everyone, but if you are still listening, it is for you. So I'll see you with the post-fight recap.